Hello and welcome back to another episode of the DC Alliance podcast. Of course, I'm your host Clay, and with me, like every week, is Hines. Travis Hines, how you doing today?
Pretty good, Clay. School's a little bit slower this week after I got three accounting finals, midterms out of the way last week into Monday. So I've been kind of enjoying things. I did manage to, while watching Star Wars Alliance, finish up an assignment, so that's fun. So I'm excited to relax. I'll probably watch Mask of the Phantasm now after I'm done with this.
Very, very nice. Yeah, I still have one more assignment to do, and it's technically due in about 3 hours. So let's go ahead and get this to it. Of course, before we jump into Superman and Lois, we do have to just do the GUA network paperwork, as we like to say. Of course, we are a part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance network, 8 shows, 7 days a week. Of course, we are on a weekly and bi weekly schedule. That bi weekly schedule being starting off on Sundays with a slice of film with Katie that is coming back in April. It was just confirmed via Star Wars Alliance. We were live just 30 minutes ago. So that will be very, very awesome. There are some surprises coming to that show that I think only I know right now, which is really, really fun. Of course, there is also a World's Finest True Believers show on Monday, along with Ranger Alliance. Go check both of those out. Specifically, World's Finest True Believers this week. There was a awesome interview with four creatives on a book called Supermassive, spinning out of the Radiant Black comic book out over at Image for the 30th anniversary. So go check that out. Really fun stuff. Then there is
Best interview yet of the network, in my opinion. I've loved all of them, the creator spotlight ones, but this one was like
This
something
was this
else.
was this was something special. I've been following Kyle Higgins from a very for a very long time in his career with DC, in Marvel, and even in indie comics. So
I'm
this was
picking up
very fun
Radiant
to
back. I'm picking up Radiant Black this weekend because of that interview. So
awesome.
yeah,
It's a really fun book. And then of course the last show on our bi-weekly schedule is a walk through the multiverse. Of course, the last episode with Joe was, I believe, Resident Alien season 2 talk. And of course, Joe gets a little more news into everything that's been going on. And I believe he talked about wanting or may not wanting to talk about the Critical Role Amazon show called The Legends of Vox Machina. It's based off of D&D. That show was awesome. I finished it today. I believe there is maybe something in the works, like I said, at the walk through the multiverse to talk about that, but we will wait and see. Now, of course, every other show on the network is weekly, that being DC Alliance, Superhero Discussion, Star Wars Alliance, and Marvel Alliance. Now, this is a listener supported network as well as ad supported network. So if you know what that means, that just means that, we're going to have ads in this show. We do not choose the ads, we don't choose how many ads repeat themselves or how loud they are. So we will give you a 3 count so that way you can turn down your volume just in case, there's any danger of actually blowing out your eardrum. So if you don't want these ads, you can easily just, join us here on YouTube every single time we go live. We do have it in the show notes when we go live here at DC Alliance. And of course, they have the show notes on Star Wars Alliance and Marvel Alliance when they go live as well. But without the ads, without the ads, you can get it here, like I said, on YouTube and on Patreon, which is a dollar tier just to say thank you. And then a $5 tier will actually give you that exclusive content and also the ad free stuff early on. Now, with that, like I said, Marvel, DC, and Star Wars all have a solo feed, so go check those out as well. Now, I think that is everything. Let's go ahead and talk about our, because I don't believe you even talked about it a little bit. Let's go ahead and just give some brief thoughts on episode 4 of this season.
the inverse method.
Yes. So the inverse method, I will say, was not as bad as we thought it was going to be, or as I thought it was going to be. We dodged a bullet. Now, there are some things that, kind of lead up into this episode that I'm still kind of questioning, and we'll see how it all goes. Some friends of ours actually made a connection to something with with these in particular episodes that I thought was absolutely hilarious, and I didn't realize it until they said it. We made the connection of like, oh, they're doing a cult thing. That's hilarious. The whole thing that's happening to Allison Mack right now, that's kind of shady, but but then who I'm talking about is of course DCTV over at Squadcast Media. They also noticed the cult leader. You know her name?
Al.
Allie. Allison Mack.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's I didn't realize it until they said it. I was like, oh shit.
You could be that way, Clay, or you could be as on the nose as humanly possible with, I don't know if you saw the clip going around with Tom Welling and Erica Durance. They're at a
Oh my god.
Comic-Con.
I shared it in the GOA.
Uh,
When Tom Welling was talking about the animated series, that he
did I say Tom
hopefully
Holland? No, I said Tom
no,
Welling, right? Okay.
sorry. Yeah, Tom Welling was talking about, getting this whole thing up and running. And he's like, it's going to be a little hard to, get Allison Mack. And like the entire crowd is like, oh. And then Erica Durance is like, we have Zoom.
Cold. I love that. Well, she's one of my favorite Lois.
I love Erica Durance. Nobody can replace her. But I enjoyed the last episode. We got a little bit more with Jordan and John. This whole thing with John Henry. Being hospitalized. I thought they were going to do a little more with Natalie in this episode that we're going to be talking about, but we will talk about that as well. And yeah, I like where it's going, but I'm still hesitant. But we will talk about that now in episode 5. But what do you think on episode 4?
I'm in agreement with you. Like, there's a lot I enjoyed. We were both hesitant that it was going to be like, I don't know, with the Bizarro, I was very iffy. The way they're tying it in, we'll talk about it in the next episode, is something I didn't even think about, but makes perfect sense, and I'm happy. There's a lot of things here, Clay, that I will commend them, because early DCCW, when there was tension or potential for like fireworks, they would drag that on 5, 6, 7 episodes until they found out the truth. Whereas, like, we have our Jordan issue, not Jordan, the Cushing, Sarah's father. I can't remember his name. It's not Jordan. I don't know.
Sarah's father?
Yeah, douchebag,
Kevin?
douchey.
Kyle?
No.
Kyle.
He's total Kyle. Like, you just look at him, he's a Kyle. Anyway, apologies to all Kyles. I'm just joking, obviously.
Oh yeah, we don't want to get any.
They would drag that out in Flash and Arrow early seasons. Like, they would drag that out 4 to 5 episodes, and we get a conclusion to that immediately in the next episode, which I was so happy about, because I didn't want to deal with that crap for 5 episodes.
I didn't want to deal with it, but I have a question for you about that also.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that when we get into the episode.
But I just want to, like, maybe the way they execute it might not be, but I'm just glad they don't drag on storylines that don't need to be dragged on. And that's one thing that used to frustrate me about early DC.
Yeah, the dramatic irony. Yeah.
And why the show stands above them. I enjoy the Superman Bizarro battle, and like you said, John being in the hospital.
Oh yeah, and 2 of those Supermen freaking just died.
Well, killed by Bizarro. Yeah. He killed them. The thing you said about Natalie not being used in this episode, the one thing is, if you're going to make it a very heartfelt and meaningful thing, I didn't want you to try to shoehorn in with very minimal time. So you put it on the back burner for 1 episode, but now I don't know what storyline. Well, actually, the Kyle storyline maybe we'll take a back seat next episode, and maybe we'll get our Natalie stuff.
I don't think it will, just because
finger crossed.
It's very complicated with how you have to do things here, because this next episode. Well, I mean, do you have any other thoughts? Because I feel like we're holding back on a lot of things for episode 5 right now.
Yeah, just essentially, a lot of it ties into episode 5, and if it would drag down a lot more, I probably would have more to say about 4. But most of the questions we had in 4 were answered, and we had more questions after that in 5. So,
okay.
I like I said, enjoyed the action set piece and the conflict between Clark and the new person in Sam Lane's job. I'm really enjoying that. I don't know why, but uh, I'm enjoying that he's having this against because I really do like the fact that the government would try to control Superman. That's 100%. Like they would want him acting for their interests regardless.
So, okay, so we're gonna be jumping into this. I do have a question. General, right? Is he a general?
I think
Anderson.
so. Anderson, yeah.
His tone, like as in his voice, sounded different than like I don't know if it was like him trying to be like consoling.
Lieutenant, he is.
Lieutenant Anderson, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was trying to be consoling or anything, but he actually had like a lower tone to his voice. He sounded kind of quiet. I felt that was very weird to, considering the situation that they were
answer
in.
for that is possibly because of him losing two of those three superpowered, and like they were killed.
Yeah,
And they're
but he's
young
not the
and-
kind of he's not the kind of person to show remorse though.
Well,
like
we
I don't
don't-
think really think so.
We don't know about fellow soldiers, right? We don't know because that's usually a thing about soldiers. is,
Yeah.
like regardless of they're usually detached about most things, but fellow soldiers, especially people under your command. Now the villains, we'll see because maybe this is a redeeming quality for him at the very least. Is that he realized I sent those guys out there. Superman said, and Superman actually tells him in the episode I told you not to do that. They were way too young for that, and he was
Yeah.
they served their country. So that's kind of why I think he has a different tone. But he almost blames Superman in a sense because if Superman was working with him, those people wouldn't he wouldn't have even had to use those people if Superman was working for him instead of for the
Yeah.
world. So
Now we talked about dramatic irony. Now sometimes it can work, sometimes it is boring, it is stupid. We already know, and so why doesn't the rest of these characters know type of situation happens sometimes. Now, I feel the way this episode opened, I did not like. It was the flashback with Allie showing that she was inheriting some of her family's money or house or whatever. And it also came with this pendant that we see is the pendant that Bizarro is wearing. This I did not like because it gave us nothing to anticipate. It was more of hey, she's in control of everything now, okay, let's move forward. And like you said, sometimes it can be kind of a drag to have that dramatic irony. This one felt weird.
I don't know about that. For me, I understand if this is all we get, but I really feel like we're barreling towards an episode where we find out her ascending and we get to see the actual version of her on that side and that whole what that actually is. Maybe Lois goes over there finally and we get that whole full point of view. So I think it'll be different. I actually did enjoy that. I was a little confused to start. I didn't know who it was until we flashed because she hasn't been a big enough character to open without seeing her for me to know that that was a young her. Even when
Yeah.
he, so, maybe
No,
you
I
should
think
have
I
had
think
her
that was
look at
I think that was
picture
the big
and go
play.
into it.
I
Yeah.
think that was the big play was that you do this and in the very next scene you see her sitting down
yeah.
and it's let's prepare for our guest that's coming over, which we know is Miss Beppo.
It
Now,
gave me anticipation, Clay, for the pendant and what it
Well,
actually that stuff.
and
I'm
yes,
so
and
confused
this
about that.
version of Bizarro and everything else, it seems that they are taking some creative liberties with this because I've never seen a Bizarro that is, or at least the connection to the Bizarro world being a pendant. And again, this could be something that Superman and Lois does just for the creation of the show, and that's totally fine. I understand that. Now, the Bizarro verse is something that is real. There is, I believe it was in Superman, or no. Yes, I believe it was Superman Rebirth, one of the very last issues of that run, somewhere in the 45 issue
I was gonna pull
number
Katie from Star Wars Alliance, but
and just
I don't trust my chair. First of all, to slide across the room without falling down. So I'm just gonna
yeah.
stay right here.
So in Superman Rebirth, one of the very last stories, they dealt with the Bizarro world, and it was almost like a wall where they kind of just jumped into the Bizarro verse. Now, when the Bizarro world was first introduced in comics, it was actually like an entirely different planet. And instead of a sphere, it was actually a cube. So that way you can, like,
Okay.
it was the complete opposite of Earth. So, they have dealt with the different dimensions of our world versus the bizarre world. And that's, something that is plausible as far as this comic book world is. Now, I am interested in how Allie or why Allie is so important to be able to have this quote unquote key to the bizarro world and how she has become a dictator of it, because that's something else that we have learned
Yes.
is Miss Beppo is angry at Lois but not angry at Lois and like
I
wants
just want
to.
to say one thing. I was so freaking scared that she was just going to hate Lois and become evil, like without
Well, no,
very
so
little motivation. So
yes, that
happy.
was my
So
thing.
happy.
Was the
Yeah.
fact that there was so little motivation for her to be like, oh well, I'm just gonna hate Lois now.
You argue with your coworkers all the time. Like it's not all the time, but you
She
bump heads
she,
every once in a while.
she changed too quickly,
Yeah.
and even in the last episodes, she turned too quickly for me to be like,
But
you just saw how this person is a bad human being, and you're okay with just having conversations with her. And was it a heel turn or was it, maybe
it was all part of her plan.
I want to see more instances where Miss Beppo can now convince me of that kind of play.
Yeah.
Because this is more of like a hey, I'm going to take a chance thing, and it's like okay, whatever.
She even said that before she went. She said because she gave Lois one more opportunity to tell her what was going on. Lois withheld, but in reality, Lois didn't even have any idea what was going on. So, like, that's why I love, like, it's part of, like, she was a reporter before Lois came. The one thing she wanted was a big story. So for her to do this, I totally underestimated her because we haven't seen this side of her in a little while because it was a little bit early into season one when she was talking about that stuff. But she does have that in her, and like her doing it again, like next time she does it, Clay, you'll be like, okay, I totally see. Like, you've done that play a couple times now, or something like
Yeah.
that. So you're building credits, like you're building a character here. You're building a girl that doesn't have. I don't want her to be Lois's lapdog, like follow every word Lois says. I want her to question Lois at times, especially we know Lois is keeping secrets from her. Mainly, I'm married to Superman.
Yes, and there was that conversation where she had said, we are partners, but it feels like most of the time I'm only working for you, not with you. And, that's when Lois was like, well, that's not fair, blah, blah. And I do need from both. I need from Miss Beppo and I need from Lois to actually use this as a partnership. And there was some of that in season one, but it was more near the tail end. When they made the team up official and the partnership official or whatever.
I will say it. I will give Lois something for not doing it too. Where, especially with a journalist, it's very hard to be really like friends, let them into a lot because of that big secret that you got back there of I'm married to Superman. I know like that's Superman's identity. So you got to pick and choose, especially a journalist. Like if Beppo's seen a couple times some weird things where Clark left and then Superman came, she would start to be like, we've seen that with her now, where she is curious. So I understand Lois' plight because you'd want to share everything because we've seen that she's a really good character and good friend to her, but it's such a conundrum. So it's a really interesting little dilemma there, Clay. Before we get into anything else, do you think we should take our only ad break of the evening?
Let's go ahead and do that and we'll move forward.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So we do not choose these ads. We don't choose how many times they repeat themselves if they do. And of course, we will give you a 3 count right now. Ready? 3, 2, 1. We will be right back. And we are back. So, in this also, I felt in the very beginning, right after that entire opening scene, there was a moment where Lois and Clark were talking about everything that's going on. And Lois makes the giant leap of, hey, I think everything that's going on with my sister is connected to this Bizarro version of you.
No, that's not what she said first. It wasn't it wasn't a gigantic leap. It was a little leap because she saw in the audience of Allie's seminar. She saw the woman that was running the mines that she and John had interactions with at the first episode, the one that knocked John out. So
Yeah.
that gave her the holy crap. Like, is the mines, is what come out of the mines connected to Allie, because these two people are connected. That's so I know it was a leap, but I don't know if we can say gigantic leap, just because first of all, journalists are going to try and make leaps to try and figure out things anyway. But there was a little bit of context there where she noticed that person, zoomed in on that person, found out who it was, and realized that's the same person that we interacted with.
But that wasn't until after that conversation, though.
No,
She was talking
that
about her sister in the very beginning of the show.
yeah, but that she didn't say anything about the mine until she and Allie until she saw that I'm pretty confident of. I might have to go back and watch it again, but I think that she didn't mention anything about the mine being and the Bizarro Superman being connected until she saw that picture.
Well, no, not the mind itself, just Bizarro.
Yeah,
Like
but I don't think that she said that until after she saw that
okay,
picture.
I'll have to go back
We'll
and
have a
double
look.
check.
You could be right. We'll have a look. I watched this like about 10 hours ago, but still.
Yeah, I watched this about 12 hours ago, to be completely honest.
I could
Now,
be wrong about that.
but besides that whole thing, we've kind of, I mean, generically, Ali, Miss Beppo, Bizarro, all of that we've kind of already talked about. Let's veer off to some other talking points here in this episode. Let's go with John and Jordan, because Jordan opens his big mouth and was like, "Oh, by the way, Grandpa's going to be coming over here and he's going to be training me." Now he does.
Some prodding from his
he's
brother
very
together.
hesitant first off, but John kind of pokes and prods. He's like, okay, fine. He's going to train me, and John's like, okay, why are you training him? And that's when Lane says, well, there's going to be a day where your father needs his help, and he's going to need to know what to do. So they start training. Now this is very basic training, very, very basic training, because John does get involved.
He
And
says he wants a baseline, and that's why he wants to involve John. And that, first of all, that's the first insult that John takes personally.
yeah, for
And
real.
He says multiple things, like he's special in that. And this is a thing that is a test of time. That is not, it's a father figure. It's not a father, but a father showing more affection for one son than another. It fuels that other son. It spurns that other son on. And we get a prime example of that. I've seen that happen in real life, in sports, in like so many different, like it's just a thing that happens. If parents should favor both equally, like don't have a favorite, like not be like saying you got to realize you're a special kid while the other kid's literally like standing right there. He can
Yeah.
eat everything.
And of course, when they're doing push-ups of all things, and they're like, "Oh yeah, Jordan is like, oh, do you see how many I did? That's great, yeah, And John's like, hey, this is like physique, peak, high school student, and even Lane is like, I'm sure your coach would be proud, but you need to calm yourself. You're no Superboy over here, And so that happens. John's not having any of it. So he goes and uses that inhaler and takes some of that X kryptonite. And he's like, you know what? The only way Jordan's really going to, get some good training in is if he's actually going to take a hit. Which I know, like, he's kind of, again, poking and prodding, being the older brother, poking and
Where's
poking.
General
poking.
Lane on that? That was a terrible decision. Yes,
Well,
let me let my grandson with powers as non-trained spar with my other grandson.
But he says, well, it's up to you, Jordan. And he's like, okay, well, fine. And then they get to fighting. And here's the thing that I don't get. Clearly, the way the camera work was going, the way the special effects were going, the way they like slowed it down and everything else, this is supposed to show that John is using that X kryptonite in the sense of showing that he has powers. Does General Lane just like not see this?
Well, he could just think that Jordan's holding. He even says to Jordan, just before they start to spar, that you're holding back. You're not giving it all. You're all against your brother because you don't want to you don't want to embarrass him. So he does hold back because he kind of pushes him the first time. He hits him in the guts, he lifts him back up. Whereas John goes for combinations and he's on him because he's angry, and he's holding back because he doesn't really want to even fight his brother. That wasn't what part of his training was. So I can understand I can understand that's what General Lane's thinking. Like he's holding back because he just held back for the push-up challenge. So obviously he's going to hold back for a fight. But I don't understand what Jordan is thinking when John is dodging your punches and throwing that whole "you have powers" talk. That should have been initiated by Jordan when after that happened. He should have been like, man, I wasn't holding back all that much. And he was
exactly.
Dodging,
and
he was Rocky.
And that's why I'm a little confused by all that. But also, I'm not going to say the actual context, but Hines and I have seen a photo recently, I believe. Did Brent send you that photo?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Should we say it here? Should we give a warning and talk about it? Because I do want to bring it up in the sense of this part of the conversation.
We've kind of alluded to that. That was where it was going to go anyway when we saw what was happening when he first started taking the inhaler.
Okay, so I will go ahead and say it now.
Spoiler, run away if you don't want to hear what potentially may happen to John's in John's future storyline. Run away. 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, run away. Go, Clay.
Okay, I wasn't going to go that far. I mean, I feel like people can now connect the dots. But skip ahead 20, 25 seconds or whatever, a minute or two to be, safe. Okay, 3, 2, 1. It looks like John is getting the original Superboy get up. Now, my thing is this during the X kryptonite usage, or is the X kryptonite usage going to awaken said powers, which we have debated on this show? So what do you think?
I don't think that should be the case. That's an awful sketchy message you're sending to people where
do drugs, get superpowers.
It'll unlock your powers. So
fuck yeah. I mean, in the sense, Chris,
I would be okay with it.
Because I know that Chris Bauga has also seen said photo. I do believe. But I am currently reading 52, which is a 52 issue story on a story without Superman, without Batman, without Wonder Woman, and it's just the DC universe. And it's really weird is that in that book, Lex Luthor creates a drug or a serum or whatever to give individuals superpowers.
Like the end of New Order and the Nightwing book.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he also has the ability to take it away. So I'm reading this comic while I'm also watching this show. There's a lot of similarities here. And of course there's a little bit of that similarity to, of course, Smallville with the kryptonite giving people powers in that show as well. This is kind of like their homage to that. And I'm just thinking, in a way, can this in a because I forgot what they call it in the comic that I'm reading, but even in a world of Marvel and X-Men, there's way to awaken your X gene, right? So maybe the kryptonite will awaken his Kryptonian powers, because he does have Kryptonian blood in him.
Yep. It's very possible, Clay. Like I said, I don't know what kind of message that would send. That would easily fly on HBO Max, but
well, I don't know if they're thinking that far into it, to be completely honest. Now, they are thinking very basic, hey, drugs are bad, because of the story. It is very clear what they're
But
they're trying to say.
I do enjoy the Jordan and Jonathan part where, like, Jordan realizes immediately that there's something up with John and not confronts him, more so asks him, like, says, like, come on, man, like, what's going on? Which is honestly, like, props on the writing because that's exactly how that would go. That wouldn't be like what kind of problems? It would be that kind of slang back with you and your brother is how that would go down in my opinion, and I enjoyed it. And the fact that the only thing I didn't enjoy was the fact that Jordan was just like, yeah, okay, I'll give you a couple days to go because of the reasoning. John's reasoning was, I'm just developing my powers, like I'm not quite used to them yet. I want to give you like more days, try them out. That was the first thing. And Jordan was like, "No, come on, let's go down and tell him." He's like, "No, no, no. Dad's gonna have me get off the team first thing, so I want to have a couple more days. You want to have a couple more days with powers that you're not comfortable with yet on the team." So Jordan, that's not an okay thing to let your brother do. So
Yeah.
that was a. But nah, you have blinders on for your brother too, like for family. So you might be more lenient than you would a
And
normal person.
the problem here is, John has already told this white lie
Yeah.
of, oh, I'm developing powers. As of right now, we think it's a white lie. We don't know if he will, eventually get more powers.
Based on the information we have right now, it is
Based on
exactly
the
right.
information, it is because of the X kryptonite. So, how long does that mean he has to do the X kryptonite? How long is he going to be addicted to this X kryptonite? And how long until? Because here's the thing. I'm pretty sure my father doesn't listen to this, but even if he does, I'm pretty sure he knew this. I smoked cigarettes starting at the age of 15. And every single time that there was a freaking carton of cigarettes in our house, he was like, "What the hell is that?" And I was like, "Oh, a friend of mine left it here." Bold face lie. Bold face lie. And he would just kind of roll it off. He's like, "Okay, when you see your friend, make sure he doesn't smoke inside of our house and make sure that he keeps his cigarettes on him." I was like, "Okay, cool. Cool. Yeah." Now,
What? That worked?
but did it? Because I feel like parents know.
I would
You
hope
know?
that he knew that, Clay. I would really
Parent
hope.
parents know. Like,
That's like the
even
worst excuse. That's a dog ate my homework level excuse. And I was
it's
like,
it's the quickest thing that I could. Oh yeah. And he knew some of my friends smoked, like, because they were older than me. And so I was just like, "Oh yeah, it's their cigarettes. You've seen them smoke. It's their cigarettes." He's like,
cool
"Okay."
hand Luke. Cool hand Luke.
It's
Clay.
the hey,
It
I
worked.
I was a kid that lied a lot, and I don't do it anymore, as much
I would
anymore.
hope not with lies like that. I would hope you'd avoid the whole process.
But but I say that to say this, as somebody who has taken care of children since those younger days of mine, when a kid tries to lie to me, I see it right there. I see it in their face. So I want to know, is John going to be able? I feel like he'll be able to lie to Clark. But of course, so one thing that happened in the last episode that we didn't pick up, that we didn't say, that I thought was very, very funny, was when Lois was listening to the podcast, and he was like, "Don't listen to your mother with your super hearing," saying that he never does. But he's like, "Well, since you already did, what'd you say?" And that would then, for me, think, okay, well, if you're not personally using your super hearing on personal moments with your wife, does that mean you are also not using your super hearing on your children because you trust them? And again, it then you have to balance out the idea, okay, you're a parent. Do you trust your kids or do you trust your kids,
I
And
trust my kids when I can be there in a blink of an eye.
true,
Yeah.
true. And of course, I say all this to say, if John were to try to lie to Clark, would he use his super hearing to listen to his heartbeat? You know?
Ooh, I didn't. We definitely We may even see that, Clay. Or can Jordan do that eventually?
or if Jordan can do it. But I think because of what we saw in the first season, I don't think John will be able to lie to Lois.
I don't think he's going to. Yeah, that's. I think she's going to see right through him, and I think he's going to come crashing down. I think this could be done really well, and I'm really curious if they're going to go the route of this gives him powers or not, because like you can make that work for me too, especially with like the meteor rock element of it, and that's essentially how every person got their powers in Smallville. It's just in different form right now. I one thing I want to see is what about the other quarterback? Like, is he shooting laser beams out of his eyes? Because he's taking more of it than John. So I hope we get to see something with that in the near future. What do you think about the Bizarro versus Superman fight? Because we got to talk about that. I thought that was some of the best CG work.
I
Done
really
so far
liked
this
it.
season.
One call out, I will say, shout out to the people making this show because there was an homage to the Christopher Reeves movies when they were at the fortress and they had Bizarro captured.
Yeah.
The rings that were circling around him, it's the same rings that were capturing Zod and his two lackeys in the Christopher Reeves movies. So I thought that was really really cool.
It was
We got to see Lara again. We still haven't seen Jor-El because of what happened to the old fortress. Which, I mean, come to think of it, they're not using the real fortress. They're using his brother's fortress, which I
Yeah.
thought was kind of funny. But I did like the fight. I thought that was very enjoyable. I do like the very savage acting of Tyler when he is the Bizarro Superman.
Yeah.
I thought that was really
Feral,
cool.
almost like a
Yeah,
feral animal. Yeah.
yeah,
One thing I got to ask is because clearly right now, regular Superman is far more powerful than Bizarro. Like he didn't really have that much of an issue with, it, and he was caught by surprise with the difference in powers of the freeze eyes and fire breath. But besides that, he toyed with him essentially, like and subdued him. So
yeah.
what is going to will the how will the like something's going to happen? Will the pendant is the pendant what will that make Bizarro just as strong as Superman?
Well, and that's what I like. I would like to have a little bit more information on this whole like, oh, well, it looks like the pendant is getting you stronger.
Maybe you
That
come
whole conversation
from
between
maybe if you
Clark
come
and
from that
Anderson.
world. Maybe if you
Yeah.
come from that world, it will make you stronger. So I don't know.
But that's not entirely true because from Anderson's readings on their government equipment, it looked like the pendant was making Clark stronger, not
He said when he was
Bizarro.
getting close to it, yeah. So maybe
Yeah,
that's just because Bizarro's there too, his mirror counterpart. They're kind of calling them mirror counterparts here.
yeah. So I want more information on that. But before we leave for this episode, let's move on to the cringiest part of the story. Unfortunately, is just everything with Lana and Sarah and
Would
their
have been
father.
much cringy because it could have went on for 4 episodes.
It could have gone a lot longer. That is true. Now I will say something that what hit very close to home. The changing of the last name with Sarah and their family. I can't remember what they changed.
Cortez to Cushing.
Cor- well, Cushing back to Cortez
Yeah,
is
well, they
is
went
what.
from Cortez to Cushing to get it
Now,
done.
I wanted to bring this up because this has happened into my family. My grandfather on my father's side, his name is his birth name is Jesus. That is what he was born with. He went into the Air Force, and the Army or the Air Force made him change his name, his first name. At the age of 18, made him change his first name to the point of like birth certificate, everything needed to be changed because they said, "Hey, Jesus is too close to Jesus, so your name is now going to be Jesse." So they legally, I feel like illegally, forced him to change his name to Jesse.
Oh, 100%
So
illegally.
so on all of his certificates and all of his documents, his name is Jesse. But everybody in our family calls him Jesus.
Oh, proper thing too. That's such BS, man. I hate. That's just
It it
close-minded. I'm trying not to curse. Just close-minded,
it
sad
was it
individuals.
was it was very confusing when I was told that story. And so when I saw it play out here, I thought that was very, very cool, for everybody in the Latin community, Spanish community, Mexican community. It is very important for us to keep our heritage and keep our last name. So I thought that was very, very cool. Now, one thing I do not know if the CW wants me to like Kyle, but I will tell you this: I still do not like Kyle. So
Well,
I
I
do
hope
not
not.
care about this story.
He squashed his goodwill here that he had built up, and he had lots of moments to make things right and come. Well, not make things right, but I mean, come clean and be accountable for his actions. But instead, he just danced in the living room, making everyone say like, "Oh, how nice you are!" Like just basking in that. I will say that he he basically blew it all up for himself. I don't even know if the mayor was going to even say anything. He did kind of allude like he knew with the last little thing he said in the eye direction towards Kyle, but I'm kind of glad. Maybe we'll see what happens here. I wouldn't mind seeing. I did enjoy the speech that Lana gave to her daughter. Just more and the whole just before it, like looking at her being like, "We'll get through this. Like, come on, let's go. Let's get this done and over with." I did enjoy that, like in the closeness there. Uh, I'm just glad, like I said, that it didn't go on
Well,
4 or 5 episodes.
I will say this though. There was a moment where Sarah was having a panic attack, and Lana kept saying, "Oh, we're gonna go celebrate your life. We're gonna go celebrate how fun we're having. We're gonna go celebrate." That was the wrong thing to do.
Oh, 100%.
Although she quote unquote recovered with the nice speech, I still think they should have just cut everything and said, "Hey, mentally, we want to keep our child safe. We want to keep her, protected. And so we're calling it off. Y'all have a good day, whatever, night, evening, whatever." And then just move on from there.
You
I,
give
I,
you give that you give that speech, Clay, before like when you're out talking to her, you give that, and if she wants to go in, then you go in with her. But if she looks at you and says like I can't do it or anything like that, you just go on home. Like you don't wait to give that speech. That is a good speech to give to your kid. But that speech can be that speech don't need to be given in front of a crowd. That speech could have been
exactly.
given to your
Yeah.
kid, and then you could have seen how she handled it. And if she hugged you and said, like, "Okay, man, wait, here's like, let's go and get this done and over with because we invited all these gifts. They gave me all these gifts, and I like, let's just get it over with, and we'll go home." But if, like you said, if she hurt, like you could do it both ways, then where you could justify it and saying, if Sarah didn't want to go, she probably wouldn't have went. Like Lana would have took her, but Lana gave her a choice, and she decided to go in. Lana more so like went to her, and I will agree with you. I didn't like this in terms of the basically like the behind the message behind the message I got was wipe away your tears, tough up, like let's get through this part of it, and then after we'll deal with this stuff. Whereas that's not very good with anybody that got any mental health problems to say like bottle that up, like wipe away your tears. We got all kinds of gifts. Let's get that's something a cruel parent would say. So I didn't like that part of it, but the speech. So it was two contrasting things that really like if it should have been done a little bit better. Like that was a fumbled bag.
Yeah.
Right mentality of the mother saying like all I need is you. Like we'll be in it together. Wrong mentality of having her first say like come on wipe away your tears. Let's go in and face this. You're right about that. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. But I believe that is really it. I mean, the one thing that we were going to say is the fact that Natalie was non existent in this episode. And I really thought that they were going to push a little bit harder on the whole thing of like her not liking Superman because of what happened on her Earth, and him technically being involved in the now hospitalized John Henry. So I'm sure we
He
will
mentions
move
it. He mentions it,
in the very
saying that
beginning of the
when she
episode. Yeah.
says like, but Superman should go visit, and he says no, not after. Like she hates Superman now. So, like I said to you earlier, I hope that it's just because they looked at the script and said, we got like 3, 4 storylines here that we have going. Let's clue up this Lana. Kyle, Sarah storyline. We can focus a little bit on Lana and Sarah next time, and devote most of that time to uh, John and his daughter.
Yeah,
That's
for
what
sure.
fingers crossed. But they're going with a lot of storylines. The only positive is I'm not hating any of them. Like the Kyle one was annoying, but that clued up enough that I'm like, okay, like I can. If you're, let's see what these characters, what path, let's see how this affects these characters. Now, like I'm okay with it because you didn't drag it out because I've been so. I have a little bit of PTSD from Flash and Arrow. Like I love Arrow, but Team Arrow broke up like 7 times, twice back to back years, back to
Yeah.
back seasons, and I'm like, okay, you're just dragging stuff out to count up episode counts. So enjoyed this episode, gotta say, Clay, a lot, and I really enjoyed the Superman versus Bizarro fight. That was fantastic, and the whole him caging and them talking to him, all that was great stuff that I really love seeing.
Yeah, same. 100%. But of course, you can always find me at Fanboy Clay on Twitter. Go to the link there in the bio. There's a link tree there that will take you to all of the shows that I host, that including DC Alliance, Batman News Weekly, Ranger Alliance, and of course, Star Wars Alliance.
And I'm on Travis_156 on Twitter. You can find me there. Drop me a line. We can chat about DC anytime. I also host superhero discussions for the network. Recording a special episode with Joe from Walk Through the Multiverse on Friday. Look for that on your podcasts, on the GUA podcast on Sunday.
All right. Well, with that, guys, thank you so much, and we will see you guys next week.
See you next week, guys. The Batman.